Holding the body very still with all the senses on receive, including the mind. Just let the thoughts come and go. Feelings, emotions, memories. Just observe. Those of you in the Zendo, please come and sit in front of the altar. Those of you on Zoom, please face your computer screen. Thank you. This evening is a Dharma talk, and before we start, I'd like to thank everyone for supporting this community by attending Dharma talks and also for your financial support. And please continue to do both if you can. As we go along, we do it together as a community, a Sangha. That isn't always so easy. Any kind of gathering is going to have its challenges. So the title of the talk is Don't Maintain. So the idea there is, as you've heard me say a few times, just observe. If you observe, everything is fluctuating and changing so much that if you try to maintain something, live up to a certain standard or a rule or a law, even the precepts are to be observed, not to be maintained. If you maintain it, everything crystallizes into something that has no oxygen, doesn't breathe, doesn't move with everything else that is also dependently risen. It may look like some things are static, but they are not. But if we try to live up to a standard, maintain some kind of ideal, some kind of idealism of how this should be, then even the practice, the sitting meditation, shikantaza, actually can become solidified in a way where there's no openness. You're maintaining a state. You may have had this experience or talked to others who, when they meditate a lot, feel like they finally are settled down and are in a serene, stable situation all the time. If this is happening, I'm not saying this is incorrect. It may last for years, but it will come apart because you've actually found a way station. You found a place to just turn off and park and just sit there in that state of mind. Consciousness always finds its own form, as I've said a few times. And what I mean is not a particular form. It will find every form it can, every form it needs to, based on passion, aggression, and ignorance, until it finds its actual form, which is consciousness only. It doesn't find something else. Wisdom finds wisdom. Don't believe anything I say. When I say that, I don't mean that you shouldn't consider it, but you don't have to accept this. You should look at it yourself with an open hand. Look at what this is. And you cannot look at what this is if you're maintaining something. So returning to shikantaza is, it won't particularly feel like you're getting anywhere. This is why Suzuki Roshi back in the 60s taught by using the idea of a Zen mind or heart mind, beginner's mind. It always a beginner. We never get anywhere. Difficult. That's how the ego will feel as it is slowly taken away its fuel of right and wrong, up and down, back and forth, success and failure, and all of the other materialistic expressions. So, however, it's very important to return to that. And when we do return, it may not feel like we're getting back to the same place. It may have a different shape to it, a different odor, may have a different texture to it. And this seems to be the way, the way we slowly get the feeling that everything doesn't have a steadiness to it that we thought it would have as we progress on the path. When I say progress, I'm just saying time is going by. You're not necessarily improving. So return to it. Just earlier when I was talking to, I think I was talking to Susan about how to just don't maintain shikantaza, and when you feel disturbed or antsy or restless, get up. This is not always taught this way. I wasn't taught this way, but this is how it looks to me now. Get up, move around, go get some water, go out onto the lawn, unless the weather's bad, look out to the window, and it's as if you're never going to go back to sitting. So don't maintain anything. Just go and receive. If the practice on the cushion is getting too frustrating or too challenging, it's probably because you're getting very close to that safe deposit box of ego, which is your ideas, your opinions, your cherished whatevers. And when chicken Tyler starts to get close to that, the ego starts to talk to the body, wiggle around. Don't sit here. It's the getting too close to the fire here. And what I would say, then don't fight with that. Don't fight with anything, but return. Eventually, the damn thing just wears out. The self-centeredness. No, eventually you get where you still suffer. There's still pain coming and going, but you're done with fighting with everything. You might feel some sadness, but no more war. Terrible things can happen, and you will be able to receive those without bloodshed. You know what I'm talking about. You do not have any say-so about what happens in your life. If you think you do, then go ahead, live that way. Try to get stuff, try to keep stuff, try to control stuff. It's going to be very disappointing, like it says on my cup that was gifted to me by someone who's been there. Disappointment awakes. It's humorous because it does, along with a lot of other things around the corner, including death comes without warning. This so-called manifestation that we believe is so real, that is completely unreal, is an illusion, is coming to an end. What doesn't come to an end? That which has not begun. And that which has not begun is your true nature. I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm saying reflect on it a little bit and consider it. Consider the nature of what seems to be reality in the form of coming and going, right and wrong, up and down, back and forth, life and death, pain and pleasure, and all the other dualities. Consider it. Don't maintain. If you maintain, and you can do some maintenance happening there, but that is the kind of energy that that part of the consciousness we call narcissism or ego, or that identity area that grasps at a self and grasps at an other and keeps that polarity, that seesaw, teeter-totter, going right and wrong, should be, shouldn't be. If you do nothing with it, but you just observe, but you don't, what I'm getting to there, you don't have to maintain some kind of an observer. You can actually sit down, hold still, look at the wall, and watch what comes and goes. You might be able to do that for 20 minutes without getting antsy, and you might be able to just receive or observe the antsiness for a little while. But if it's too challenging or too irritating or just frustrating, get up. Don't fight with it. Get up, go do something else for a short while, come back. This is why the block sitting is something that I kind of came up with a while back. Sit down, strike the gong, sit there for 4 hours. And the awareness will notice how if you're listening to what I'm saying, you don't have to maintain that. You just have to begin, and 4 hours later end, and then watch the movement. And if you observe, the body mind are not separate. They just look like it. And when they look like it, we tend to think we have control of things. But when you see that your body and your awareness and your mind are not separate things, then the movement is seen more precisely in terms of start the motion, start the bell, and start the observance of the motion, and then watch how part of the motion happens in the mind stream. And then when we get antsy, which is the word Susan used, is we all know what that means. We just got ants in our pants. We want to get up and go do something else. We're tired of just sitting here We don't care how much the Buddha or anybody else said we should do this. We don't want to do it. And so you should be very respectful of the mind when that kind of thing comes up. It doesn't mean you're caving in, you're a failure. I'm telling you, saying to you, suggesting to you that you could watch the movement in the mind, even if it is antsy, it's still awareness. And watch what the antsiness does when you get up and go over to the bookshelf and look through the titles that are there, or perhaps thumb through a notebook, or maybe a book you're reading, or the newspaper if you happen to still do that type of thing. I wouldn't recommend going on TikTok because that's very habit forming. You probably will miss your 4-hour gong. Maybe not. Maybe you're able to maintain your sobriety long enough that you don't get addicted to TikTok. So that, all of that being said, it's still about you. The way Naveed works with this, the way Eric or Augie or anyone works with this, the way I work with it, it's going to show up differently, and it's going to change and fluctuate. Watch the movement. If you don't necessarily go into some kind of macho controlling thing, things you've got to get to some kind of state of mind, then you get a chance to really appreciate and see what the movement is and what is actually happening there in a deep way. And again, what I'm saying here might be workable for everyone, or maybe 32% of everyone. There might be some people that really do need to put some emphasis on holding still. They might need to go longer when they feel nervous or upset or antsy. They may need to sit a little bit longer into that than get up. They might. You'll know your own dynamic. You'll know whether it might be good to sit here for 3 or 4 more minutes before you react to that, because it will feel like a reaction, and reactions to things always tend to feed ego in the way ego manifests failure. Oh, you're not going to be able to do this. You can't really get this. And then we start to feel that the opposite of pride, which is what? Shame. We start to feel ashamed that we can't quite get it. We're not quite good enough. Ego will do anything to keep on existing. It will even chew on negativity. It might chew on negativity your whole life. With some people with no mind training, that's how they live. They just see how they're a failure. So don't maintain, but return. Don't maintain, but allow the movement. Allow yourself to get up. Allow yourself maybe to stretch, just without even getting off the cushion. If you just lay back or wiggle around a little bit, and then return to the stillness, return to the silence, and just observe. That might last for 3 minutes or 2 minutes, and you might be antsy again. Don't cover that up with some kind of a judgment of, I can't do this, or some kind of a judgment. I have to move. No, it's not like I have to move. Just move. No comment. Just move. Be genuine. Just be genuine. When I train very small children to meditate, and I've told this story before, but I sometimes say, it depends on the age, but if they're 4 or 5 or 6, 7, maybe, someone in that area, I strike the gong and I say, now when you hear the gong, then sit very still. And I might even use the word symmetrical. Sit very still. Hold your hands like so, or put them on your knees. I might tell them all at a particular time. I might not give them too much of a choice. I might just say, put your hands on your knees. Sit like this, very still. And then I show them when the gong rings. And then and sit there as still as you can and your eyes are open, still, just sit very still and watch what continues to move. Children understand that immediately. And so sit very still. And then when you hear the gong, 2 more gongs, then you can move around. And I actually demonstrate, then you can move around. I don't get up and run around like they do, but I move around, I relax, I look around like that. So then you can do that. When you hear the gong again, back. It's amazing how well they can do that. It's just, it's been a couple years since I've done that, before COVID, I guess it was. But you start with the gong and they all sit. But you don't do it for longer than about a minute. So you're not trying to force train them. You're just trying to give them an experience of stillness. That's all they need. A 7-year-old meditating for a minute and sitting still is like an adult doing that for an hour, just because of the nature of being young. So the part that I'm quite entertained by, and others were also, other adults in the room that were observing what was happening, is struck the bell. They all sat still. Ding, ding, struck the bell again. And each one was different, but they got up, ran around, chased each other. It was just they just went nuts, which is what adults do, but they do that in their mind. And these children were just, because they know the body and mind are not two different things. So they are their bodies. I'm sure you've noticed if you have children, or if you've been one. Unlikely, but there might be some possibility of people out there having been children. So you get up, but when I struck the gong, it was like flies on flypaper. It was just zip. They were all back in their seats, and you couldn't have asked, if you'd have been in a Zen monastery, you couldn't have asked for more well-trained monks, but they only had to sit still for 1 minute. And then they all came back and were sitting just very, almost militant, but not quite. They were just children. So it told me quite a bit about what was happening there with them. And they seemed to be both really interested in it and entertained by that. So just return, don't maintain. And if you don't set up too high of a standard for yourself, a few minutes, maintain a few minutes. That's not much. That's not even maintaining that. You're just going to sit still for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, maybe an hour. But it would be different with each person. I have to interact with someone for a while to get an idea how they're working with the meditation. If they've been meditating for years, maybe doing a completely different form. Maybe they've only been doing this form, the way I teach Shikantaza, for a few months. Then what I might recommend to them, if depending on what kind of challenges they're having could be very, very specific. Sometimes I respond to people in a way that I'm listening to it at the same time. That's interesting that I would say that. And it's like, I don't really know, I don't have a why, but something about the way that I'm interacting with that particular student tells me that they should do something different, maybe even close their eyes. So that's happened on many occasions. Are there some questions in here? Yes, sir.
Choose in mind. Is thinking there's any relative result from meditation a misunderstanding?
No, thinking there's going to be results. If you just sit down and hold still over a period of time, there's going to be results. It's just that you don't know exactly what they're going to be. And sometimes the results that show up are the things you've been covering up for most of your life are starting to crawl up the sides of the well. And it might not look too inviting. And also another person, because of their dynamic, they could start to feel very, very calm and just like, oh my gosh, what have I run into here? This is just wonderful. I've never felt this at ease or at peace. It probably won't last, but it might last for quite a while. And another person might have the anxiety situation, or the antsiness could come up. A person who might have thought that they were able to do just about anything they willed themselves to do, but if they try to do this, doing nothing, sit still and watch, they might find that all the antsiness that was there is showing up. So more?
Using mind. It doesn't look to me like sitting results in serenity, but it feels like less spinning to an extent.
Absolutely, and relative, but it's a relative. If you sit down and you're kind of reconditioning yourself to just sit still, but you're not making a demand on it. You're aware of also the movements of having some anxiety or having some speediness in the mind. You just watch that. But over time, if you do enough of it, and you've done years and years of meditation, so it's not like the goal of meditation. It's not like something you're kind of getting to. You realize there's something way beyond your particular thinking process about it. So it's kind of like the side effects of sitting still and of watching what moves can very likely show up as results. So there are some of those. It's just that if we go after that and grasp at that and try to maintain that feeling of steadiness or of calmness, or that's when we get into spiritual materialism and fixation and trying to maintain a state that it's not what is being taught here.
So what is the path, or what is receiving when there's less sitting and more spinniness? Is it a misunderstanding to try to sit more?
No, of course not. But it's different with each. It's going to be different with each person. Everyone's wiring is so. It's bizarre how much contrast there is between 8 or 10 people. All the different interactions and ways of understanding. This is one of the reasons I promote or recommend that we study the Dharma together, not just read a book on your own. To interact with others around that study. Then you really realize how many different ways there are of understanding that. Some seem to be very close to what was being taught, and others seem to be, it's like people, I'm including myself in this, is how we don't really understand what we're studying. This has been my experience for years and years ago when I was studying back in the 60s and the 70s, of how hard it was for me intellectually to understand what this is, which of course makes you feel like you don't get it, or else you might think, well, I'm getting it, but I'm getting it in a different way than other people. All kinds of things happen in the mind stream. More? As I've said before, I'm a slow learner. I can learn. It just takes me quite a while. A lot of repetition. Doesn't feel particularly comfortable if you kind of compare yourself to others and see how quick everyone else catches on to things. You catch on to things very quickly. Too bad. Because when you do that, we've closed down on it. So it's not wrong. A lot of things in the world, in materialism, in the mundane path, is about getting it very quick. And even one of the definitions of high intelligence is someone who thinks very fast. But it's as far as the spiritual path, that might be a hindrance. Maybe, not always. Also could be very helpful. There again, dependent origination. Causes and conditions are all over the place. More? Yeah.
Yeah, Brian.
Eric.
In the beginning, you used the word static when you were talking about how things are constantly changing. Mm-hmm. How do we work with the teachings that include the word is, like as it is, or mind is Buddha? It seems to be very static.
Boy, doesn't it though? I agree. I think it's to try to see what is being pointed out rather than what we think is being pointed out. What we think is being pointed out is some kind of as it is. It seems static, so it's a good question from that point of view. As it is, just this, nothing else, empty of other. So empty of other, the other would be some kind of fluctuation or change. So it's empty of that. So what is being said is that the illusion that things are moving is what is seen as it is. So as it is, the as it isness is there, but everything is fluctuating in that situation. It's like the sky is as it is, but the clouds are going crazy. They're going here, they're going there. There's birds flying, and there's whatever other things are. Rainbows, ducks. Those are birds. So it's like the movement is there, but because we see as it is, we see that, then we see that which moves, it's like that as it is like the projection screen. If you go to a movie, it's just, before the movie starts, there's just that screen. And then all of these images come on there. And someone who sees what as it is pointing to, not only sees the ducks flying or the clouds moving, but also sees that nothing is happening. In reality, nothing is happening. What is happening is the illusion, and we are entrained by it. We're hooked by it. We're caught into rut. I want that. I don't want, but I want this, but I want that. That should be happening. And I could go on and make up all kinds of stories, but I think you see what I'm saying. We get hooked on the otherness and on the rotation between success and failure, right and wrong, up and down. The movement looks so tasty. We want some of that, or else we repelled by it. We have to get away from that. We have to stop that. It's too painful. And when you hear the teaching in the midst of that kind of activity, as it is, then you can see the utter. When I say utter, it's close to uttara, is Sanskrit for no farther. You know that. Uttara. Uttara means that there isn't anything any further. There isn't any understanding that is any deeper or more profound than what? This. And what is it? As it is. It's complete stillness, complete silence in the midst of the sound and the chaos of movement. So it's helping us to see, that kind of teaching helps us to see the movement, the chaos, the grasping, the rejecting. And we don't have to give up on any of that. That's a different kind of mind training. It's more about don't eat anything after noon and don't have any kind of be celibate. Don't have any kind of fun. Well, that's fun for most people. And don't do anything. Instead, be very, maintain. And I'm saying that's kind of what I'm saying by don't maintain, so that you can actually see the karma that is arising in your mind stream and in your life stream as movement. And then there's a natural kind of discipline that just doesn't buy into that. It sees that it's an illusion. It doesn't mean that it doesn't taste good. Or it doesn't mean that it isn't distasteful, but it sees that it's unreal. Am I getting close to what you're asking about? Do you have more?
Maybe both. It's something I've struggled with for a while. It seems in my relative thinking that it's very tied up with identity, and that identity is something that we are taught is not real. So it just doesn't, it's sometimes I think about when you say, I tell you not to do something that I know you can't not do, just to direct your attention to it. So I wonder if it's like that. But then I also feel like it's kind of a trap. Like if we use this language just as a way of talking about it, it kind of frames it in a static way.
It does.
It's just a struggle.
I agree, it is. And this is why when we're talking about it this way, we get to the point where you say, this is impossible. And that's basically what you're describing, because it's so incredibly magnetic and magnetizing to get us into it. And yet we have no say-so about it. So it looks possible because we're going to train our minds and we're going to see clearly, and we're no longer going to cause harm. We're going to be able to do good, and we'll be able to be with all things. But it's a total failure. Disappointment awaits. I was going to reach for the cup, but then I remembered what it said. So it does. And something about that teaching, that understanding that life is suffering, great, profound difficulty. If we look around the world, it's just horrible what's going on. But it is a landslide that started back in beginningless time. And there's only a few people. I'm not talking about some kind of chosen few. That's bull. But there's only a few people that have an interest, have the karma, have the insight to be able to see. We might want to just stop pushing and pulling and shutting down on everything and just see what this is, see what the world is in here. Excuse me, that's why it's called a spiritual path. It's very, very difficult to do this. And the world, including in our Sangha, even in the form of other monks or other practitioners, are pulling us this way, or possibly our spouse or our other relationships that don't understand why you're doing what you're doing, have no interest in that. And we have to be respectful of that, and we have to continue to return to, not maintain it, but return to the teacher, the teaching, the community, the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha. Return to the wall until there isn't anything but the wall everywhere. Doesn't mean you're bored. It means that everywhere you look, you see your mind. Sometimes it has been said the boundary between meditation and post-meditation, it just goes away. That doesn't mean you're in some kind of fancy, weird, non-dual state of samadhi. I get irritated when I hear that crap, because it's not the idea of non-duality. It's seeing that the actual duality is the non-duality. So they're very pulling at you this way and pushing at you this way. This is seen to be happening in a space where nothing is happening, the sky, and everything is chaotic, the clouds, and you don't separate the two anymore. It's come to an end. At the same time, you're able to receive the chaos. No more war. Don't fight with anything. Don't agree with anything. Don't ignore anything. You're just present. You might be able to speak about it and you might not. And even if you can speak about it, there are people who will not understand, but will want to hear more. And then they'll not understand that and they'll want to hear more anyway. So and then it just keeps going like that. It's quite frustrating. Not for me, of course.
It seems like in our relative or mundane life, there are some things that it would be good to maintain, like keeping a job or doing the laundry so we have clean clothes.
Yes, what's your question? I hear you.
Is there any area in that realm where we can contemplate or bring in the teaching of don't maintain?
So with a job, just go to work every day. Return to work. Don't stay there because you're afraid you won't go to work the next day. You know what I mean. Otherwise, they wouldn't have time clocks. I know I worked at a factory for 13 years, punching a time clock, and I did not like it. But I needed to make money and had children. More?
I guess I'm wondering if this teaching is meant more for our practice than our regular life.
Not everything. Now, there's some things that you will continue to eat. You'll continue to go to sleep. You might have trouble with that. There might be all kinds of medical whatever going on. But we're talking about here is basically mind training, which has to do with the body, because the body and mind are separated, but they're fundamentally not separate. This is what shows up with children. This is why instead of just thinking in circles, they run in circles. Whereas adults, they're not moving much, but their mind is going quite often, looking for that, stopping this, getting that ready for that, stopping, going, start, and so on. So it is about awareness mainly, and the way we practice that is to make sure we spend a lot of time sharpening that awareness, sharpening that blade by sitting down, holding still, and observing awareness, observing what comes and goes in the mind until that which is being observed, thoughts or emotions or feelings, they're like clouds, is not separate from that which is observing, which is the sky. The observer is just who you are. Your identity, if you have anything at all, is it's just a big, vast expanse. It has no boundaries. But if you're tied into the thoughts and the emotions and the feelings and the judgments and the criticism and the passion, aggression, ignorance, you just go from lifetime to lifetime looking for happiness. And you're already happy. You just avoid it. That kind of happiness may not be the, tickling your nerve endings necessarily, but it's a kind of understanding that goes beyond the pushing and the pulling, the grasping, the rejecting, the desire for something to appear, the desire for something to go away. More.
How do we see when we are believing our thoughts?
So you see that you're believing your thoughts. You can see that thoughts are rising, and you can see that you're clamping down and buying into that, or you're adding more thoughts on top of the thoughts. You're making laminations of thoughts. You're further away from the very thing you began thinking about, which could have been the neighbor's loud lawnmower. Might have gone into all kinds of things about that, what you should do about it. We should call the police. And I'm just using that as a simple example, but could be any number of things. Sit as much as you can. The whole body-mind complex, as much as you can sit and hold still, so you can get used to seeing the way the mind keeps cranking things up. I want this, I don't want that, that shouldn't happen, this shouldn't happen. That person's to blame, I'm not to blame, or I am the blame. I need to stop, I'm a bad person. More commentary, elaborations on everything. And so sitting practice of meditation returns you to the fundamental situation over and over again. Just like the children hear the bell, they come back to the seat. That's how it works. That is the Buddha, even in a small child, just Buddha. And it doesn't mean that there's anything being maintained there. If you really see it, you could just sit there for a while. But time would not, as we commonly measure it, would not necessarily be going by more.
Earlier, I think you said, don't comment on anything,
Yes,
just be genuine.
yes.
How is commenting on something not being genuine?
Being genuine is you have eyes. Do eyes produce anything? You know, you have a nose. Does the nose produce? Well, we know about a couple things, but we're saying it basically smells or receives all kinds of things, humidity, fragrance. Same thing with the tongue, same thing with the fingertips, same thing with our whole body. And the mind also is receiving in that way, unless we're producing or generating some kind of thoughts out of being afraid or being grasping or rejecting, tied into passion, aggression, and ignorance. So genuineness would be, you're just here, you're present. You're not adding on a bunch of ideas about things. So you haven't shut off all of your senses. So you're here, you feel, and you see, and you hear, you taste, you smell, and you're just present. And even the mind is just with all of those senses. It's not particularly producing thoughts outside of something occurs. You might hear a sound outside the building and think, oh, that sounds like this or like that. I'm like somebody walking down the sidewalk. No elaborations. Might not go any further even to speculate on who it is, or you might. So it's just present. Someone walks in the room, there's no additional chatter about who they are, what they should, what they're wearing, how they're acting, what they said to you yesterday. It's just present. Genuine presence without elaboration on it. That doesn't mean that if someone says to you, how are you doing today? Or do you still have a toothache? I know you had a toothache yesterday. And then you would respond to that. Yes, thank you. It's gone away. Or I got to the dentist or something like that. So it'd be very, very simple and direct. Like it says in the Zen tradition, before awakening, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. So nothing actually occurs. Occurrence doesn't happen in the ultimate nature. It happens in the relative one, which is relatively true, but ultimately untrue. And we are endeavoring to, you could say, make a transition between the grasping, fighting, passion, aggression, ignorance, hope, and fear that holds sway in the relative world of all around us on CNN and everything else we can see in our neighborhoods or across the kitchen table or all of that. A lot of useless warfare. You could say useless because it does kind of seem like, why is everyone fighting about everything? Well, it's not a why question. It's a what? Dependent origination that is misunderstood and is personified or personalized by each person. When an emotion or a feeling or a thought arises in your mind stream, that does not belong to you. That is not yours. There is no ownership there. This is why the whole system that we have of blame and someone who gets in trouble, misunderstands, operates out of fear, commits a crime, we lock them up. We don't help them. We punish them. It's like the same way we tend to raise children. Not a good idea. Not a good idea. Complete horrible misunderstanding that leads to what? More chaos, more criminals. We've got those all put in a box. More. Go ahead.
Ondobowing,
Yes.
you're saying that like when we maintain something, we're actually fighting whatever is showing up. So like in Junshu's example where, you know, the laundry needs to be done, we're trying to maintain a house.
What's your question?
My question is, how do we, is it an attitude that we need to take to the laundry, for example? When we're fighting the fact that we hate to do laundry and yet it needs to be done.
Well, that's very specific. So would you like me to do the laundry for you?
I'm thinking about the same thing when you say sit more.
Yes.
And it's already difficult to get to the cushion.
I'll do your laundry, you sit. I'm following. I don't mean to make light of what you're saying. It's very valid. Can you paraphrase yourself, which will give us both a different angle on what it is you want to know? Can you do that?
How do we not fight?
Watch the fighting. Don't go to war with war. And that's kind of a little slogan that shows up over here occasionally. Just receive the war. If there's warfare coming in your mind, it needs to be there. Instead of saying, I got to stop fighting with that. You might as well be pedaling a bicycle. Pedal, I got to stop. Here it comes again. I got to stop. I got to stop. And you're actually creating the circularity yourself. Just be at war. It will not feel good. It may feel disappointing. More?
What is the difference between discipline and not maintaining?
So the way I talk about discipline is that it is awareness of forms that are coming and going rather than clamping down on one and making it be that way. Just like in this monastery, we have forms. They're very, very definite. And I encourage everybody to not only follow the forms, but if you can't, then you at least observe that there's a form. And then all you have to do is with one of the people who are like, you're the shuso here, and just let the shuso know, can't come to that form. I didn't get enough sleep. We don't come back and say, well, why didn't you get enough sleep? Are you sure you didn't get enough sleep? We trust people to express themselves where they're at. I don't know what it's like to be you or anyone in here, but I know what this is like. And so I know that I do the best that I can, but I'm not particularly disciplined in a natural way like some people are. Some people really take to these forms and really want that shape of their life so they can practice more, they can sit more, they can study the Dharma, they can study with a community that has a commonality of being very interested in what the Buddha taught down through the centuries, through all of the lineage holders, up to and including the present holders of the Dharma. And so it's about observing those. As my teacher, Kobunjin Roshi, told me, it's not about taking precepts, it's about observing them. And observing them might be part of it, seeing like you can't quite do that, maintain. You don't have to maintain, just return to it, return to the vow. Return to the vow to be with all things. You can't maintain be with all things, it's impossible. It's a really irritating to try to do that and look and see it. If anybody comes to me, anybody who is a meditator, is a student of mine, comes to me and says, how am I doing? And just about everybody does. I said, good, doing fine, keep going, because I'm not in any position to evaluate that, even though I might see where you're having a lot of trouble or where you don't seem to be, shall we say, observing the form by actually doing the form. But I don't know what it's like to be you. I have great respect for your confusion and for your clarity. Would be my way of talking about how I work with students. I respect you. That doesn't mean I'm not going to yell at you. I might, but I don't plan anything. So sometimes I'm quite surprised at the people I do yell at. I haven't yelled at anybody, have I? People are getting more upset with me because I'm getting more and more grouchy. Well, wait till you get in your 80s. See what it's like. Not easy. Shisho, you have a question? I'll get back to you if you have more.
Peace allowing. Along the same lines, when you say don't maintain, do you mean not ascribe continuity to anything?
You could say it that way. I'm not surprised that comes from you, but yes, exactly, precisely, and indefinitely. We can use all of the words we have for all these things. It makes it look like everything has a different shape, but that's the illusion. Nothing is separate from anything else. There are no separate shapes. It's an astonishing illusion that if you awaken from it, doesn't mean the difficulty or the challenge or the suffering suddenly backs off and you're living in some kind of a heaven realms where everything is unicorns and box turtles. But you have an understanding that goes beyond the grasping, the rejecting, and the shutting down. And it's completely delightful to be here, to be alive. At the same time you're suffering. At the same time. Not two, not one. Go ahead, Chisho.
Ishwang, is ego does ego, or is ego the only thing that provides continuity to anything? Bye.
Well, it certainly is heavily at work with the illusion that will support ego either in the negative or in the positive sense of getting ahead, being successful, being smart, being handsome, being attractive, making your way, living in an island paradise or whatever it may be. But it also supports that in terms of negativity, of being wrong, of being harmed, of being hurt. You're the one that was not treated well. You're the one who was not respected or was controlled or did this and was thrown in prison because there's no real kindness or respect in society in general. There's the illusion of that to some extent. More, Chisho?
Ishwang, yeah, I was just wondering if it's only ego that provides a continuity, whereas nothing is continuous. Everything is changing all the time, and it is.
You could say it that way. That which has continuity, which is the basic definition of the Vajrayana or Tantra, the adamantine indestructible vehicle, because nothing happens there. But the illusion of things occurring, showing up and going away, is very, very powerful. And so, but basically, as His Holiness Karmapa said just before he passed away, nothing happens. So he laid it right on, he gave us all ultimate teaching, right? Nothing happens. That doesn't mean that you won't think that this is coming and going and coming and going and coming and going. You'll chase after this and run away from that, providing a really, really intense double feature right in your own hometown. Susan, don't you have a question? Come on. Kick it up. No? She's gonna run away.
I have one, Rehan, bowing. This might be a difficult question to answer, but I was wondering, why are beings born to believe that they have a mind rather than just thoughts? This seems to cause a lot of suffering. I thought, why not be born knowing, oh, there's no mind and I have thoughts? Bowing.
Yeah, I just think it's a matter of dependent origination, grasping at this through three poisons of pushing, pulling, shutting down, and hoping for one thing and fear of something else. It's just quite a mess from the point of view of trying to get anything to settle down. So I don't know if we can come back and find a first cause for what you're talking about, but you can find this personally if you practice and train your mind. You have to do a lot of it. You can't just be meditate once in a while. And it's also important to meditate with the eyes open. If you close your eyes, you might as well be going to sleep because that's what you're simulating.
Okay. You saw right through me there. I'm trying to find the first cause because I think if I find the mind, then you can push and pull on the right thing, and you can do good. But I might be better off just finding it myself.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Susan.
Bowing.
Susan bowing. So Sokuzan, I always hear you say, sit down, hold still. I've never heard you say, stand up, hold still, or lie down, hold still. So what is it about sitting that's so special? Bowing.
I don't know what's so special about laying down or standing up. I mean, there are different positions. You could stand up and hold still. Some people, if they have a lot of back trouble or something, that's a better position. I have people that do that somewhat. Laying down or lying down it's more like getting ready to fall asleep or something. So, but if a person can sit or lay down very symmetrical and hold very, very still and look at the ceiling, I would think that would be probably workable. I don't know. I think it would be better to sit up, and that way you're actually have to have some energy into the situation of holding a posture where your back is straight. That seems to be more like an active kind of engaging with the body that is endeavoring to sit still. I could probably do a lot of conjecture around that. I have one or two, maybe two, at least two, maybe three people who, because of their chronic condition, really need to lay down. They might start sitting up, and then I've said, yes, go ahead and lay down if you need to. Sit up a little bit, but then go ahead and lay down. Keep your eyes open, and watch what comes and goes in the mind stream. Go ahead, Susan. You have something else? Okay. Are there any other questions anywhere? Yes, go ahead.
If the warfare appears to maintain itself, is there anything else to see or do other than just receive it?
The way you're asking it, I would say just watch, just receive, watch it come and go, rather than try to stop it. It's always about awareness, never about accomplishing, having so much great discipline that you've stopped being mad, or you've stopped this, or stop having extraneous thoughts about this or that. So just observe it. And it will, in the words of Trungpa Rinpoche, it's like walking on an old shoe. It eventually just wears out. It's because you don't do anything, but it's just there. It's just there. It's just there. And if you don't fuel it with passion, and you don't destroy it or try to destroy it or fight with it with aggression, and you don't ignore it so that it has its own karmic spinning that continues and continues and continues, you actually watch it, like watching a Ferris wheel, somewhat more.
What does it look like to actually receive or observe something that appears to be repetitive and maintaining itself?
What is it like? If you do it enough and you don't add, and that's passion, explaining it, judging it, evaluating it, blaming someone for it, blaming yourself, doing it, leaving what is moving for what you think it is, or interpreting it, or elaborating on it. You don't do that. And if you don't, when it's the same thing, if you observe that and you don't fight with it, try to get rid of it, complain about it, do anything in response to it. In other words, you just receive it. You don't cover it up with your ideas, your opinions, your judgments, your laminations, your plywood. You don't protect yourself from it. You're vulnerable to everything that shows up on the doorstep of your mind. You receive. You don't reject. Excuse me. You receive. You don't modify or change the shape of it so it's easier to receive it. You just receive it just like it is. You eat it, and you don't turn away and distract yourself from that doorway of the mind where everything is showing up. You don't go into something else and generate out of dependent origination something that's more interesting, like TikTok in the mind or something like that. Just anything to keep you from looking at what this mind is. If you don't do any of that, eventually, when I say eventually, that's a relative word that I need to use here. You won't see anything. Nothing happens. All the occurrences might still be triggering pain. You might still have pain, but nobody's having the pain. If no one is having the pain, it might be more excruciating, because at least if there's somebody there, they've got a jabberwocky going on. Well, I wouldn't feel this way if she didn't, he didn't, they didn't. But I'm going ahead. I'm going to go ahead and take this. Even though I can handle it, I know I was being blamed. So it could be more painful, but that pain is dependently arisen. We don't take it personally. You don't take it personally because you've been watching yourself jump on it, jump off, jump on, jump off through the sitting practice of meditation. And eventually, over time, it's bound to happen. You just stop doing stuff. You get worn out constantly trying to correct, fix, change, modify, trying to be happy in the midst of a fire pit. It's very frustrating. And finally, just let it burn. It is not masochism. It is not any kind of ism. But it is one thing that the Buddha pointed out. It is suffering. And it is caused by wanting to not be in the suffering. You want to be somewhere else, have something else. So it has been called a nihilistic religion. I wouldn't say that. I think that's a misunderstanding, complete misunderstanding. It is a religion that is point at the ultimate nature of consciousness. Whether it's a human form or a raccoon or a group of carpenter ants, it doesn't matter. It's consciousness, consciousness, consciousness. And it has to be seen. And all the chaos that you may go through, or Andy, or Mozagu, or any of us may go through, is your own personal labyrinth of causes and conditions. And sometimes it looks like some of us has been dealt a pretty difficult hand. But if you're in this group, you're in a position where you actually can, there's a possibility, there's no guarantee, there's a possibility that you might be able to realize your true nature. Have I done that? Doesn't matter if I've done it. It matters if you do it. I'm only here, whatever's left of me is only here to encourage you. And it may not look like I'm doing that. It may look like I'm kicking you in the shins. I'm sure you feel that way occasionally. Chisho, I'll get you in a minute.
Ishwang. So if we are truly receiving, is there then a reduced tendency to get off the cushion and walk around and come back? Right?
But that could happen. There's no guarantee of it. There's no tit for tat happening there. So, but it could happen. You know, in your particular style, you're fairly have in the classical sense, you're a fairly disciplined person. So if there's a form, you use the form. That's been my observation of how you work with it. Are you asking about something else, or?
Ishwang, yeah, no, I was just wondering in what you're responding to Jiuzan, that say I'm just receiving and there is a tendency for, okay, I don't want to do this. I want to go look at my computer, or I want to take a walk, or I want to look outside and then come back.
Yes.
Does that tendency tend to reduce if I'm truly receiving? Because I guess when I'm receiving, even if it's a leg pain or back pain or something, it'll just be something I'm receiving, isn't it? Is there a need to react to it then? But
No. And if I'm following you, I would say that the more you practice, the more you'll practice. You'll have some kind of understanding, even under the underlayment of thoughts and emotions and opinions and all those psychological conditions that have been around since you were born, that some of that, the consciousness begins to have a deeper understanding. So therefore you're willing to accommodate the negativity that arises in the mind because you understand something deeper that is beyond the personhood. And that is what eventually, to use another common relative statement, that's what eventually starts to show through. The reality of the sky starts to show right through the clouds. And that doesn't come or go. That's the nature of the sky it's not a thing. I mean, it might be filled up with things, including its blueness, which is what, a reflection of the ocean or something? I don't know what it is. You're the chemist, you tell me what it is. But colors, and those are illusory, just like a rainbow it is an amazing illusion that has to do with the nature of light. It's just amazing, but it's And is it unreal? Yes, it's unreal, but it has a manifestation. Very, very similar to things that arise in the mind. They're unreal, yet they show up. They're vividly unreal in emptiness. And so we can, in the midst of a chaotic world and chaotic kitchen table or driveway or over the neighbor's fence, or we can train our mind to see clearly and not create further chaos in the world. But the world may not show up. Your relationships may not show up. Your job, your society may be very, very challenging. Go ahead, Chisho.
Just a personal question. For example, in the last week when you were at the retreat, whenever you were there in the seat, say for the morning sit or something, you didn't get up, did you?
Well, I eventually got up because, nature calls. And nature really helps out old people by calling. So, but during a much longer sit was the Ango last February. And I think I managed to, when I say managed, I didn't do it because of an act of will. It's just like, it could be more lazy. I'm sitting down, it's a lot harder to walk. So I just stay here. But it's not about some kind of discipline. I am not in the classical sense, like possibly you are. There's several other people. Jiuzan is also able to sit for long periods. Other people, Ondo sits for long periods. And there's other people, I don't mean to leave anybody out but there are people who can who just sit still for long periods of time. I am not one of those people so much, wouldn't think of myself that way. It's just that been doing it a long time. So it's maybe more ordinary for me. I don't know. Sure. Susan, were you raising your?
Susan Bowling. So Sokuzan, it seems like you have this enormous amount of patience. And do you think we really understand all of what you're talking about, Bowling?
Of course. Why would you keep coming back here if you didn't understand? Of course you understand. That's why I often say, what do you mean? Because I want to hear what I just said. And you'll tell me by the question, I understand what you thought I said. I don't even understand what I'm saying. When I say that, I mean that. There's something that occurs that is without a self, without an other. And it's true of everyone. You have to realize, you have to see that you don't have to fix anything. You don't have to be different. You don't have to be a special person. You already are not separate from the Buddha. I'm here to teach you that, to encourage you to look at it and not give up, no matter what happens, have to keep going. If you use some incident or some event to turn and go another way away from the Dharma, not a good idea. You don't have to believe any of this stuff. Just listen to it. Just smell it, taste it, hear it, smell it. I said that. Think it. Feel it. Feel this. But I'm not particularly patient, I don't think. Unless you think I am. I'll take that. Am I patient?
Incredibly.
I'm incredibly patient. Am I patient? Just because I put up with you? Eric, am I patient? Eric gave me the Sokokoji Mudra, which is, no, it's not. I'm not really putting up with anything. I'm not saying that it couldn't show up as patience as you practice the paramitas. But my way of saying, just don't do anything unless you have to. If you don't have to do anything, you're going to appear quite patient. Susan, does Michael have any more questions for me?
Susan Bowling, do you have any more questions? Like, he's engaged in his work. But Sokuzan, let me ask you this. You give us the same message and we ask you the same questions. It's like a kind of Groundhog Day, but we never quite get it, Bowling.
You will. Just keep looking at it. This is, as I've said a few times, I spent over 3 decades before us. I don't know, nothing happened particularly, but I just stopped closing things off. So it wasn't an actual occurrence that at least that I know of. I don't remember it. But that caused me to begin to teach. I guess that's what I call myself a Dharma teacher. Dharma means the truth. And that's what it looks like. I'm looking at that, so I don't have to think things up. But this doesn't mean that I'm somehow free of the First Noble Truth, free of suffering. The suffering can be very intense in this old man. Not only the pain, the pain of alienation, the pain of the composite are all have my attention. Is there a final question, either in here?
Christine Bowing.
Let's go ahead, Christine.
It's not a question so much as a dilemma I'm hoping you can help me with. I have a caterpillar in my bathroom.
Yes.
I see it as potentially two things.
Yeah.
If I put it outside, it's cold here in the Northeast, it might not make it. Should I just do nothing? Bowing?
What did the caterpillar say?
I couldn't quite understand with my baby finger what he was saying, but I think just leave him alone.
Yeah. Well, he's in your bathtub, right?
A little corner of the wall. Corner of the wall.
Well, I don't know why. Is it? Do you know what kind it is? What color is it?
Beige.
Beige. So let me check caterpillar experts. You know about bugs, don't you?
I don't know about a beige caterpillar.
Does anyone know about beige colored caterpillars? No, no one knows. So I think, I don't think that's, wait a minute, it says, Jen Ziegler says, put him in a plant. Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Okay.
Yeah, just like,
Thank you.
don't you have several poison ivy plants? You could put him on a plant and then let him decide. I mean, it's assuming it's a him.
It was a serious question. I was really mind boggled what to do.
I usually, if I find a bug, if I can, I kill bugs. Sometimes they're bothersome. I just, like the Trungpa Rinpoche once said at the retreat center that I went, I think it was 1975, and in the Rocky Mountain Dharma Center, there was flies everywhere in the kitchen. People fixed food, and were eating in the meditation hall. And and there's outhouses out there and everything. And people said, sometimes people would even go, right in the shrine room, or we're told, don't kill bugs. It's pretty confusing if bugs driving you nuts. You don't get to get rid of it. But he had them put up fly this is going to sound kind of silly. It did at the time. He had people put up fly paper, and then he says that's their choice. And he meant that. He would say, "We'll put that up, and that way it's their choice." Well, I said somebody had to go and buy those fly strips. Somebody had to hang them up. So I have a feeling that somebody's karma was totally destroyed, perhaps. But anyway, you could take. I don't think there's a right or wrong to that. It's just the idea that you're concerned about that little form of consciousness. I would think putting him on a plant, like Jen was saying, it sounds like a good idea. Or take him outside, and he probably knows more about climate change than you do. Very good. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending and for your questions. Appreciate it very much. Please come again tomorrow if you can. And I'm not sure what, someone say what needs to happen next. Do I leave, or?
So we'll dedicate the merit now.
Okay,
And after that point, we will return to sitting here in the Zendo and start our evening service with chanting at 20 till 8. And then
Okay.
just sitting.
Okay, and please, if you can continue, I'm going to leave, but if you can continue to sit with the community here and at Sokukoji, please do. You're certainly invited.
May the merit of this penetrate into all places, so that we and every sentient being together can realize the Buddha's way. Jiho san shi shifu, shi son bu sa moko sa, moko ho ja ho ro mi. The 10 directions, the 3 times, all Buddhas, all venerable ones, Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, the great Prajna, Paramita.
Few of us will help to reset the Zendo, but everyone else can go back to their seat and begin sitting when the gong rings.